All right, there we go. See, it's always a second try. Cool. All right, we got the recording going. Sweet. All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining our Zero Knowledge Salon today. I believe this is Zero Knowledge Salon number 15. So I've been going strong on these sessions. Just for some context, if anybody is new here, basically, usually on these salons, we just kind of have like an open discussion. Actually, more recently, we've been planning the discussions, but basically, we talk about things related to zero knowledge, cryptography, Aleo, kind of different areas within the privacy sector. But today, we're actually going to dedicate pretty much this entire discussion, or at least most of it, to the testnet, which I think everybody here is probably interested in learning more about. So essentially, it'll be somewhat of, yeah, maybe us just covering a few points and then also opening it up as a AMA session. So on the call, we have myself and then a few of our other colleagues that help with strategy and growth, who can help answer any questions people might have. If you do have a question or want to participate in the discussion, feel free to raise your hand by clicking the button at the bottom of your screen. It's the one with the hand symbol. We can bring you up on stage and you can ask away. If you don't want to verbally ask a question, you can also type them by going to the call's Q&A text chat. So if you look at the left-hand side of your screen in the sidebar, we are in the voice channel labeled Aleo Assembly. If you look right above that, you'll see it says calls Q&A. So just go in there and you'll see I actually put a label for this Zero Knowledge Salon, so you can post your questions underneath there and we can try to ask them. Cool. So maybe to start, I can open up and maybe just explain currently what's going on in regards to the testnet, and then maybe looking a little bit forward, and then perhaps I will open up the floor for some of our other teammates to make some comments here. But basically, as some of you may have seen, if you go to our SnarkOS GitHub repo, the code has been open sourced for everybody for the incentivized testnet. However, right now we're just running a calibration period. So if you connect a node or a miner on the network and start participating, there will not be any rewards at the moment. Basically, we're running this calibration period for 2 weeks, and the general idea is to just test out the network, see how it progresses, try to identify any issues that might come up, and then from there, hopefully continue to optimize the system so that once the incentives do kick in, we won't run any issues. Once this 2 week period is over with the calibration part of the testnet, we're actually going to kill it and then restart the network officially. So everybody will be able to reconnect their nodes and start mining for real and collecting those credits, the testnet tokens, right, which don't inherently have any value, right? They can be redeemed later on during mainnet, as we kind of discussed before. That's kind of the general idea. And I'm going to be putting out, I already started typing it up. I'm going to be putting out a post outlining all of this in more detail, and it'll be on Discord so that everybody can review it. But for now, we just thought that it would be nice to use the Zero Knowledge Salon to maybe talk through some of these topics, and then we'll be able to put this recording out later so that people can reference it as well if they're interested in understanding more about this calibration period. But that's generally what we are going to be doing for the next 2 weeks. Now, some of you might be asking, okay, so does that mean the official incentivized testnet is going to run 2 weeks from now? That's still not 100% decided. So it'll be definitely within the next few weeks, right? Hopefully it'll be relatively soon after the calibration period, but we have not put an exact date on that. Once we do put an exact date on that, we'll put it out there, but just generally, you should know it will be in the next few weeks following the calibration period. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And yeah, I can go into more details about like hardware requirements and stuff like that. Maybe, I don't know if Alex or Sam or any Sina, Errol, anybody wants to add on to that.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope everyone's having a good day. Thanks for being here. And thank you for your patience as we work through, and prepare to launch testnet 2 and our incentivized testnet. I know many of you saw my message last week saying we delayed from today, and now you're kind of getting from Anthony And what we are launching today, which is, the code, the node software is now open source. We transferred it from a private repo to a branch on the public repo of Snark OS. That branch is testnet 2. For any of you who want to go take a look and just pull it down right now, you can. I think, Anthony, you're going to post the instructions. You may have already posted them, but if not, I know we're going to post the instructions for folks to get access to that if they're not as savvy with GitHub. But anyway, yeah, just to add on what Anthony was saying, yeah, so we're kind of dancing around the date of when the incentivized testnet is going to start for a very specific reason, and that reason is that we want to make sure everything works out the gate as planned. And the motivation for my message last week was we just hadn't allotted enough time for you all and everybody, the community, to run nodes and identify issues before we kick off the incentive period. We really want to make sure that any issue, if there are any issues that would affect the fairness potentially of these incentives, we want to identify them now. So that's why we don't want to give you a hard date on when the incentivized testnet will launch. Hopefully, everything will go without a hitch. All of you will immediately leave this call, start running nodes and miners, and we'll have a testnet that's up and running and no issues at all. And then we can just kind of flip a switch and turn on the incentives program. To be clear, when we decide to do that, we will give some warning. It won't just be like you won't be sleeping and feeling, and miss out on the first whatever blocks, right? So we'll give plenty of warning, but we're not going to give a hard date right now. But we do encourage everybody to try and run a node on testnet 2. So if you use the testnet 2 branch, there's a script. There's a script inside that repo, or there's a script inside the testnet 2 branch that you can just you run, and we encourage you to run. It basically just automatically updates and runs your node or miner. And when you do that, you'll connect to the testnet 2 network, which is distinct from the testnet 1 network. So if you're running a node right now, you're on the testnet 1 network. So and that's not going to count for any kind of incentives, just so everyone is very clear on that. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm going to stop talking, and then I guess maybe pass it back to you, Anthony, or to Sina, Errol, Sam, anyone else who wants to add anything.
Yeah, so on the announcement piece, so just to reiterate on that, so I have not posted anything on Discord yet, working on that. I was on a few calls before this and then hopped on this one, so I didn't have time to put it out immediately, but it will be out today. And again, we'll have all the instructions down for how you can start running a node. Other thing I would say is that going off of what Alex mentioned about giving you ample time to, understand when the incentives will actually kick in for the testnet, we're actually writing a separate blog post, right? This is different from the Discord post I'm going to put out today. A separate blog post, which is going to be on our official website, and it's going to outline in great detail the entire incentive structure, which we have covered before in previous discussions in this community. However, there are a few slight tweaks that we'll be making, so you'll be informed of that. It will go over hardware requirements, bandwidth requirements, basically every little thing that you would need to know about participating. And that will be broadcast to a larger audience of folks, right? We're actually going to use that as sort of like a way to launch, our testnet and communicate with a wider audience. So all of you who are here right now are sort of getting, in a sense, some early access to information right now. And with this calibration period, because all of you are early adopters to our platform, and we definitely want to be able to support all of you for believing in this project early on, before it becomes mainstream. So I just wanted to put that out as well. We're hoping like once that post goes out, you'll have at least an entire week before the actual launch, right? So you'll know like a week in advance of, okay, what hardware do I need? What do I need to be setting up? What do I need to do? But again, like if you want to start participating now just for this calibration period, without the incentives, just to play around with it and see maybe where you need to make improvements and whatnot, that would be great. And then the other thing too, which I'm going to write up in this post, is that, and Alex also mentioned it, is if you run into any issues, you should definitely report those to us. That's actually something really important for our team, just so we can better understand what we need to improve and maybe where we need to make changes. I guess what I need to figure out is exactly where maybe people should file those issues. I'm not sure if, Alex, you have any thoughts on that, specifically where they should be filed, but definitely something we would want.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? think so. Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, sorry, I had a mic issue. Yeah, so my recommendation, I just asked Howard this and I haven't heard back from him. I think the easiest way to do it is Anthony, me and you set up either a Google Doc or a Notion page and just let people put issues they have in there initially, and maybe make sure that they include a handle, their Discord handle, so we can like reach out to them directly to get more details on the issue they experienced. I think that number one will enable people who aren't typically used to how GitHub works to report issues. It will also make sure that we can keep our GitHub repo and the issues in it kind of clean and prioritized, as opposed to just having a bunch of stuff dumped in there. So that's my proposal. Anthony, what do you think about that? Can we make a Notion or a Google Doc? And if anyone else in the community feels differently or has a suggestion, feel free to chime in. But I think that'll be the cleanest thing.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think, for now we can set up that Notion page, and then if something changes and we want to have it filed on GitHub or something else, we can always, just switch it up and direct people to a different medium. But I think a Notion page works well because we can put that on the public Notion page that we have for people to access. And I think that would be super helpful for sure. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to mention. I guess, maybe in terms of like requirements for the calibration period. So, biggest thing that Howard, our CEO, told me has to do with bandwidth. So if you're somebody that's concerned about that, I believe right now, like if you start, you only need 1 megabit per second. However, if a lot of people sort of join this calibration period and the number of miners significantly increases, then you definitely might need to bump that up. You will probably need to bump that up. So that's just something to take into consideration. I don't think we can give an exact number on megabits per second that you would need, but it's definitely something that you should consider. So if we're saying like 1 megabit per second, then maybe it might be a good idea to just be conservative and see if you can get a little bit of a higher rate than that. But that was something he said. And then in terms of the hardware requirements, I believe it should be the same hardware requirements that we had for the first testnet, which I just want to make sure I get the right numbers on that. I'll see if I can look that up and I'll mention it again. But it's basically the same hardware requirements that we had for testnet 1.
And we
so
are. Sorry to interrupt you, Anthony. Just quickly on the hardware, we are actively we initially weren't sure if we were going to release a CUDA GPU implementation of the miner, but that's something we're actively working on, and the goal is to have that out before the launch of the incentivized testnet. So currently the miner runs, we only have it optimized for CPU. I mean, you could run it on the GPU, I guess, but it's not optimized for that. So right now, the miner is really a CPU miner, but hopefully, well, let me state it this way: the plan is to have that miner, have a GPU implementation out for the miner by the incentivized testnet launch.
Yeah. Okay, and then cool. So right now, is required the hardware requirements, at least for like a CPU, would be CPU with 8 threads, 32 gigs of RAM. Those 16 gigs of RAM should be enough. Disk 128 gigabytes, and then the CPU should be at least 6 cores. Again, that was the same as for testnet 1, and it should be the same for this as well. Okay, so I think some people are posting a few questions in the chat, so maybe I'll start going through some of those. So it says, I'm in Turkey and I want to join with my own computer. How important is internet speed to proof of succinct work? Yeah, so this is kind of what I was just mentioning. The bandwidth requirements are super important. I know people in our Turkish community have had some issues with this because of, I'm not sure the particular reason, but, in that part of the world, I think there's some like bandwidth issues. Unfortunately, I don't know how much we can do to help you alleviate that. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts or if there is a way to improve that, but yeah, it kind of just is what it is at this point. Um, so yeah. Okay, question. What's the benefit of running a full node? As far as I know, SnarkOS will be incentivized, and as we cannot run both in the same server, so it's easy to say that all will be opting for SnarkOS. So I guess maybe the first point to make is that, again, for the calibration period, there's no incentives baked in, so I guess it's just kind of up to you what you want to run. When the incentivized testnet officially launches, again, officially to be decided, you will receive these testnet tokens for running a mining node, which I guess in this case would be like a full node. So yeah, if you want to be able to get those testnet tokens, then running like a full mining node would be my comment on that one. I don't know if anybody else wants to add on to that, but that would be my suggestion. Hopefully that answered your question. So yeah, because I guess if you just run like a client node, I don't think you get anything out of that. Is that correct, Sam or Alex? So
Yes, that's right. Yeah, running a client.
okay,
So I guess for those of you who aren't familiar with how blockchains work, I mean, I'm sure most of you are. So I hope I'm not insulting anyone's intelligence here. But typically, there's two kinds of nodes. There's sort of just like client nodes, which sometimes can be called light clients, depending on the architecture. And there's miners. The miners are basically the validators in this system. So running a normal client mode, basically you're just listening to the network and pulling down the latest, all the messages and aggregating the latest state. So you can see the latest state, but you're not contributing to it. Whereas the miners, the validators are adding blocks actively and are validating, they're adding blocks. They're actively adding blocks. I guess if you're a client, you're also verifying that those blocks are valid. But the TLDR is this incentives program applies only to people who are running miners. Because we're trying to replicate what it would look like in the real network where, if you're running just a simple client, you're obviously not going to get a block reward, but a miner could earn a block reward. So we're trying to replicate that in some way.
cool. So TLDR on that is you want to run a mining node, but again, for this calibration period, that there's no incentive, so up to you. Okay. Somebody also said, I think setup should be public so that others
well,
can
just
see
just one note on that. There is a kind of there is an incentive. Oh, sorry, my internet's really bad. Am I in the matrix?
Oh, you're fine. I don't know if you tried talking earlier, but you're good now. Now you're muted. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So there is a natural incentive for you to want to mine to the greatest extent that you can during this calibration period, because that's we are going to be watching, and that's like the whole point of this. So by mining during the calibration period, you're going to be representing your hash rate.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
To echo what Sam's saying, is basically we're asking, obviously there's no incentives right now, but we're asking all of you to please run a miner to help us understand and define, to help us understand the character of the network, the distribution of hash rate, and help us better find where any issues might be, so we can have, make sure that we have set up the incentives and basically the system that we're running to make sure we match to the reality on the ground, so to speak. So if you can, please do. And by the way, I guess it's important to call out now that it's been extremely helpful this entire time for all of you who have run nodes from the beginning, as we've, to help us kind of identify the issues that have existed. So really appreciate the resources and time people have put into that. And, I would say it's especially important probably now on the second testnet that we just have launched for folks to do that in the lead up to this incentivized testnet.
And again, I think that's part of the benefit of being an early adopter here is, in essence, this is a centralized open source project. So by extension, all of you are like a part of this core team, right? Because I mean, like Alex just said, we wouldn't have been able to get this far without any of you participating. So yeah, by actively running on this during this calibration period, you're helping us to figure out how we can set up the best incentives so that all of you can get the most benefit out of it. Okay, so back to the question I was reading a second ago. So Tim Smith says, I think setup should be public that others can see the issues reported. Maybe could you elaborate on that? I'm not sure, unless somebody else maybe fully understands the question. But when you say setup should be public, I mean, we did just put like Alex mentioned earlier, we did open source the code for testnet 2, so it is fully public and viewable. But I'm not sure if you meant something else there. Maybe if you want to add on to that, so we can better answer it.
Also, if you're talking about like the setup ceremony, I'm just going to blanket for everybody in this call. If you are in this call and you feel like you've been waiting for 100 years to get in the setup and you haven't gotten it and it sucks, and, you're never going to get it, DM me, friend request me and DM me. I will make sure that everybody who wants to will get a chance to do it. One of the issues we've had with the setup ceremony, I know this is not about setup, but one of the issues we've had with the setup ceremony is, unsurprisingly, but what I was hoping to avoid, people are running lots of bots and trying to spam the system. So if that's you, please stop, because we're not going to, trust me when I tell you there will be nothing for you if you contribute 10 times. There will be nothing more for you if you contribute 10 times than if you contribute 1 time. But for those of you who are kind of stuck behind all those bots and you realize you're like, hey, I really want to do this, but I feel like it just keeps erroring out or whatever, just DM me and we'll sort it out. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like Tim just followed up on the question. So he said, we're talking about the participants reporting any bugs/issues in the testnet, so I was just referring to that. Okay. Well, for that, like I said, for now, it looks like we're going to set up a Notion page where people can report any bugs or issues that they're facing. And then we will use that to record that information. And given that the plan is to put it on our public Notion page, anybody can see those issues. So it will be publicly available. Okay. And then, okay, so Mustafa, you asked about the bandwidth earlier. You said you mean upload or download. That is a good question. Let me just cross-reference my notes here to see if Howard specified specifically. Okay, he didn't, but what I would say is probably I would try to have that set up for both, to play it safe here.
And I can, and maybe, sorry to interrupt you, Anthony. I just wanted to, so like, okay, why is bandwidth important? Okay, so basically, like, in order to mine on the latest block, you need to have the current state of the ledger. And that ledger, as it gets passed around, gets longer and longer, and it grows in size, over time. So that's why bandwidth is important. If you don't have the latest state of the ledger and you try and mine a block, or if you're mining a block on an old ledger, you're going to have a fork, and then more than likely your block will get rejected. So that's why bandwidth is really important. That's why, for those of you who remember the block size wars in Bitcoin, this was kind of the argument, right? Whereas as the blockchain got bigger, you basically, it tended to favor people with strong connections that were dedicated. And that was accelerated obviously by Bitcoin, the proposal at the time, which was to have big blocks. Anyway, so that's basically, there's no right answer to bandwidth. I think as Anthony's going to, he'll give you the guidance on kind of what the minimum you should probably have is. But I think regarding bandwidth, the answer is more the better, right? Because the faster that you can communicate that you have found a block and receive a communication that someone else did, the better and more quickly you'll be able to mine. So I think there's definitely no maximum, and the minimum is, I think, is probably around 1 megabit per second download. And then, and ideally upload as well. But that could change over time as the network kind of grows in size.
Yeah, I think that last point is the biggest thing that Howard mentioned to me the other day when I was talking to him about this is depending on how in demand like participation in this test net becomes, like the more bandwidth you'll want to have. It's just something to keep in mind, and it's it's sort of like out of our direct control about how that progresses. Okay, so then somebody said, any updates on GPU mining? Evgeny replied to that. Thank you for that, Evgeny. And also Alex mentioned it, but just to reiterate, so GPU will most probably be available in testnet 2, but not optimized for GPU mining currently. So to be determined how that will shape up, but we're actively working on it. Somebody said, okay, this is a setup ceremony question. We can answer it. Hello, why the inner and outer setup queue very slow currently? As Alex mentioned, there were a lot of people spamming the setup ceremonies using bots, which is causing a really long queue, therefore longer wait times. As mentioned, we're trying to work through that specifically for the inner setup. I know a lot of our engineer, and I did post about this, I think a couple of weeks ago, but just to reiterate, we do have engineers working, vigorously to come up with a solution to try and minimize the amount of spamming and bots for the ceremony. So once that is instituted, we will update everybody, and hopefully that will alleviate some of the wait time. But again, if you're somebody that's been waiting for a really long period, feel free to reach out to myself or Alex. This is still relatively, I mean, this is a very tight knit community here, and willing to help every individual out who wants to participate and has been an early adopter. So if you feel like you're one of those people, just feel free to reach out, and we will make sure you get the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, every real community member, individual, like one community, every real individual community member will have a shot. So we'll make that happen. I'll put out. We'll have some more details about how we're going to make that happen come out later this week. But we have a plan, and again, what I need you all to do is, if this is you and you haven't contributed, you need to reach out and DM me. If you feel like you're in danger of not getting a slot. So please do that.
Cool. And then SDT said, hello there. When resume the ceremony in the browser again? Well, maybe Alex, I don't know if you want to, I know you just caught up with the team, but as far as I know, we don't have a set date, but yeah, Alex, I'm not sure if we have an update on that.
Yeah, about for the browser ceremony?
Yeah, they want to know when's the browser going to run again. Well, technically it's running right now, but I'm assuming this person's referencing, the inner setup's running, but I guess they're talking about specifically the browser version, like when that's going to start.
Yeah, we'll put out more details this week. But yeah, we just want to make sure when we rerun it that we don't get spammed by bots again, because that'll be, yeah. So I have nothing to share right now, but we'll have more to share later this week.
Sounds good. Sorry. All right. So another question is, if you run 2 mining nodes on 2 different machines to the same address, will the hashes overlap? That I'm not too sure about. I don't know if Alex,
Be more specific, like what hashes?
Basically, he's asking about pooling capabilities.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of this,
basically he wants to know. Yeah, you know what he means.
It's blocks per KYC person. So if you run 50,000 mining nodes, like there's nothing stopping you from doing that, but you're going to have to go do a KYC, and if you're going to present all these blocks that came from X number of addresses or from X number of nodes to the same address, it doesn't really matter. Bottom line is like that the gate is ultimately going to be the KYC that you'll have to do at some point. So can you do it to the same? I guess maybe I don't understand if you're asking.
I think Alex.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think what he's asking is to what extent we have pooling capabilities. Like imagine I have 2 separate GPU rigs and I'm running hashes. Is there going to be like nonce redundancy between the 2?
So we haven't implemented that yet. So I guess, okay, so you're asking on the technical side. So that's not implemented yet. That's something that we're working on. Hopefully we'll have by the time we launch, along with the GPU miner. So right now it's one miner, one address.
Yeah, because right now it's just free mining, where it's like every mining is its own little lottery system, and it can't kind of communicate intelligently with one another to pool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the person said great, thanks. So I think we hopefully answer that question. All right, so that was it for the questions in the chat. Again, if people have any more, feel free to type that. If you want to come up on stage and ask, feel free to raise your hand. I guess right now we don't have any more. So maybe another thing I'll mention then while we're waiting for additional questions is that whenever, and I've said this before, whenever we launch the incentives for this testnet, that is also the day which the ambassadors program will launch. So I know a lot of people have been asking about that. When's it going to happen? What's the structure going to be? TLDR is, and you can mark this in your calendar, the date that the incentives kick off for the testnet is the official date that the ambassador program will run. And in addition to putting out that blog post, which I said is in current development about the testnet, there will also be information about the ambassadors program. And like I said before, for the ambassadors program, this will be phase one of that program. And what do I mean by phase one? I mean that basically the first batch of ambassadors helping to grow this ecosystem prior to mainnet. Right, so once mainnet launches, in Q1 of next year, again, date to be decided on that as well for mainnet. After the launch of mainnet, then there will still be an ambassadors program, but it will be in like a perpetual phase two, and the incentives will be a little bit different because by that point it will be, live official network and will be more mainstream, and obviously there will be other folks joining that were not part of this core group here. So we want to be able to recognize those early adopters by having this initial phase. And again, details on like what those incentives will look like, etc., will be expressed in a post. Maybe one thing I would say is if you're somebody that's interested in like building a small toy application, if you're somebody that's interested in creating like content, anything like that, right? Aside from just running a node on our testnet and helping us to improve network, we're looking for folks that want to help grow the network in other ways like that, right? Through these different other content creation type of initiatives. So that's something else people can look forward to, and I thought that I would maybe mention right here. And yeah, maybe I'll just give a shout out to some of our core team members, specifically Evgeny. I know he's here. Nick, I'm not sure if he's here. King Super, and a few others that have been helping us to put some of those things together for the ambassadors program and programming contests and other things in the future that we hope to have once the testnet is running. So yeah, very much looking forward to sharing more of that. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any other questions at the moment. So yeah, I'm not sure if Sam or Alex, you have anything else you want to add, maybe?
No, yeah. If anyone has questions, we're around.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we still have 12 more minutes here, I guess. So, sorry, 22 minutes. Yeah, we have 22 minutes. So I don't know if maybe there's anything else we wanted to cover. I think we got most of it, but yeah. Trying to think.
It's a really good question about the pooling capabilities. That's something that I mean that it kind of goes hand in hand with getting multi GPU working, where you're basically able to synchronize multiple. But yeah, it would be good if we could scale that up to like multi GPU for the guys that are kind of at a higher level. I'm really interested to see kind of how like what our biggest miner is going to look like.
Yeah,
I don't even know how to begin to guess what that's going to be.
I'm trying to remember the name. I think you said like the pooling software they were going to use. I think Stratum or something like that. Yeah, I think we yeah. Anyway, we'll have an implementation of that because I think obviously
all it is it's very simple. It just all that it is a way to basically make sure that all of your miners aren't double checking a nonce. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I'll just add in it. Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Wait, can you guys hear me, by the way? I had to change on my AirPods. Hello?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I didn't know because I was talking and I don't think people heard me for a second. I had to switch my mic. Okay, so Evgeny asked just to confirm what was said on the call. 8 threads, 32 gigabyte, 120 gigabyte is the target rig. Yes, so basically it's the same as, again, it's the same as what we had for testnet 1. So that should be correct. Or at least that's what was communicated to me by Howard. So yeah, that should be good. But I just want to make sure. Sorry, I'm just going to double check here again because I wrote all this stuff down, but want to make sure. Yeah, so CPU 8 threads, RAM 32 gigabytes, 16 RAM is enough. Disk 128 gigabytes. CPU must be at least 6 cores. So I think that last part is important. The CPU must be at least 6 cores. I think that's an important thing to note. And then, okay, so somebody said pooling is what I was asking about. Okay, yeah. So hopefully Sam covered some of that in his last comment. Do you see a future in Signal Messenger implementing ZK/Aleo? I think they did a horrible thing with their MobeCoin integration. Yeah, I think that would be sick if they did implement ZK or Aleo. I mean, I'm a pretty big fan of using Signal as it is now, so I think it would definitely be an improvement for sure if we could get that going. If you have any thoughts or ideas on that in particular, like definitely feel free to share. I think that would be something really interesting to explore in terms of like content creation, like I was mentioning earlier for the ambassadors program.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion. I actually know someone at Signal, and I've been meaning to reach out to them about potentially doing something like this. I don't know. I mean, I know they're pretty all in on MobileCoin, but yeah, I agree. I'm not super excited about MobileCoin either. And obviously bullish on Aleo, so yeah, maybe we can convince them. We the royal we collectively, all of us.
Yeah, and I guess just to let people know. I mean, I was in Lisbon, Portugal the past month, and I was there for like a bunch of different like the ETH Lisbon, Solana conference. Maybe some of you saw the video I posted with my debate. People really got hyped about like ZFi and some of the other things that we're doing at Aleo. So, yeah, in general, I think that would be super interesting. And I guess the general sentiment I got from most people was that when they, first hear about Aleo and they actually start looking into the tech, people are super intrigued and think it's a really incredible project. So I think our next focus is just going to be like getting out more applications, more production ready, things so that people can really start to, experiment in full capacity with what Aleo has to offer. But again, I think the testnet is just the first part of that, right, to get us kickstarted on getting those things up and running. So definitely, I think over the next few months, it's going to be a really, really interesting time and a really great time to be a part of the community for sure. But yeah, feel free to share more about that, Gordy, if you have any more thoughts. Okay, cool. Yeah, and just as a reminder, if you want to speak with your mic, feel free. You just have to raise your hand and we'll bring you up on stage. Otherwise, you can keep typing. I think Evgeny's typing something right now, so maybe we'll get another question in. But while we're waiting for that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else maybe I wanted to mention. But, okay. Oh, Evgeny rose his hand. Okay, all right, I see that. We'll bring you up here. Okay, I just invited you to speak, so you should be able to come up. A second. Cool. Hey, Evgeny.
Yeah, hi, Anthony. Hey, everyone. Yeah, just wanted to reiterate through the pooling questions, etc. So, as it was said, we'll have quadratic mining curve. So, for block 1, you get, say, 1 reward. For block 2, you get half rewards, etc., etc. And in case of multiple miners, will these be... I mean, let's say you have two miners. One mined one block and another one mined one block. Will you get like full rewards for block 1 on both of them? Or these will be counted as block 1 and block 2?
Yeah, it's all by like miners. The way to think about it is we're not paying rewards to miners like software. We're paying to like you, Evgeny, if you're running 2 miners. Like you're just going to show us the number of blocks. Basically, the way we're going to implement this on the back end, I think, is you're going to have some blocks that you claim are yours. There will be, the mine as the miner, you'll get the Coinbase transaction, and you'll basically your signature will be on the block if you mined it, and then that signature will correspond, or sorry, your address, and your address will correspond to a signature only you can produce if you in fact own the private key that corresponds to that address. And so for every block that you, Evgeny, claim at the end of this, and it doesn't matter which, it could have come from 1,000 miners. It doesn't matter. Basically, it's just all the blocks that you can sign for effectively. All of that added up, that will be what the quadratic curve is applied to.
Okay, that's a lot of clarification here. Thanks.
No problem.
So if we imagine ourselves as a regular miner or possible participant of the testnet, it's a good thing to think about where to invest money, either into multiple nodes or in one big rig, because the results may be the same per box or maybe different.
So
yeah, for sure. Look, yeah, I mean, all things. So I think in this construction, the way I think about it is, again, given that KYC is going to limit you to just, and you right now, look, I know there's KYC may or may not be effective, but let's leave that aside. Let's just assume it is. I think in that world, it makes sense to run a single large heavy node. Yeah, and I say that mainly due to I think you'll just be more competitive given that it'll be easier or it'll be less bandwidth intensive and you won't have as much IO overhead, and I think you'll be able to mine. My hypothesis is you'll be able to mine more, and it'll be more cost effective to run a single large instance as opposed to several individual nodes. But that's just an intuition, and to be quite honest with you, this is sort of like a trial by fire for our network. Like I'm saying that intuitively, but it may well be not the case, and we're all sort of together going to figure out like what is most effective. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I've had a lot of conversations with miners who are larger scale miners about this, and they're like, "Hey, what kind of CPU architecture do I need to have?" And I'm like, "Look, honestly, we didn't write the miner with that in mind, right? Like we wrote the software." We wrote proof of succinct work and kind of we're trying to achieve the goals that we laid out for that. Like I didn't think about it from the mining perspective because the point of the blockchain is kind of not just to be mined. It's supposed to be secure, right? And so, but the incentive, obviously miners want to make sure they're profitable, and so people will. I'm confident that people will quickly gravitate towards whatever is most effective, regardless of whatever I say or don't.
Yeah, just to add on to that, when I discussed with Howard, he said it's more advantageous to take server resources and instead deploy something like an EC2 instance instead of spinning up multiple separate ones at less power. I think, yeah.
Did that answer your question, Evgeny? Can you still hear me? Am I the only one on?
Yeah, still here.
Oh, did you hear what I
was like just long silence. I'm like, wait, did I disconnect?
Oh,
wait, can you hear Anthony?
I actually can't hear Anthony, but
yeah, he was just like adding to your answer, and yeah, I was listening.
Okay. Oh shoot, okay, Anthony, I don't know why I can't hear you, so I'm gonna just mute now.
Okay, yeah, that's really weird. Okay, yeah. All I was saying is that what Howard mentioned, basically just reiterating like essentially the same thing that Alex said, but he said it makes a lot of sense to take server resources and deploy something like an EC2 instance instead of spinning up multiple separate yes, I guess servers at like less power each. That was like the main thing that he said. And in that case, I think the theory is that you'd rather pull this into one machine in order to beat out other people, because yeah, if there's like for example, if there's two parties that are competing and they both have like, I don't know, 10 like independent resources or something, and you're like splitting that up, you'll actually be able to, but instead you pull them together, then you'll actually be able to like outcompete those people. And in that case, yeah, because if you split everything up, you won't have like a faster chain, and you'll be less competitive. So that's what he said. But again, I don't know. I guess that's the point of this like calibration period, is to see what makes the most sense. But that's at least what Howard mentioned. Hopefully
Just
that makes sense.
wrap it up in the chat.
Yeah.
So basically, running one rig is better.
Yes, for sure. One rig is better with.
That's my hypothesis as of now. But to be honest, I haven't benchmarked this, so I can't guarantee you that it is. But my strong feeling is that it likely is, at least initially.
Maybe a little bit of newbie question here, but in this testnet, it doesn't seem that we have like difficulty rising, and whenever someone spins up his miner on VPS, he gets like 1,000 blocks, and in this case, it does feel like running more nodes will give you more competitive advantage, let's say.
Yeah, but the implementation of the node for testnet 2 versus testnet 1 is entirely different. Basically, it's almost entirely new software. So I would not say that testnet 1 should be super indicative of how testnet 2 will look. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to give some time before the incentives started with testnet 2. So yeah, in the world of testnet 1, Evgeny, you're 100% right. You should just spin up a bunch of nodes because the difficulty won't increase at all. But in testnet 2, that should not be the case. The difficulty, in fact, we've already observed it as kind of we've done some internal team testing. The difficulty does adjust, and it is responsive to the amount of miners on the network. So yeah, I think it should look much more like some other blockchain like Bitcoin or Zcash or Ethereum.
Cool. So coming back to questions on pools, yeah, people may run multiple nodes on the same miner address, but more likely, at least as you expect, and maybe we expect, it will be less advantages than running one big node.
Yeah, that's what I think.
And in order to create a proper pool with like combined computation power, you need to write some software probably from scratch.
Yeah, we have to implement that. So that's on our to-do list before we actually launch this, because I think that would be nice to have.
Well, thank you very much. I don't have any more questions.
Cool. Alex, can you hear me now,
Evgeny.
by the way? No, I guess not. Okay. I tried switching in my AirPods to see if you could hear me. Okay, maybe I will just go through some of these other questions. So somebody said, when will we have clarity on the list of restricted countries? Alex replied, said US, Canada are restricted. Unfortunately, this program is limited to only those outside of the US and Canada. I think we mentioned that before. So yeah, I think everybody else should be clear. I guess the only reason you wouldn't be clear is if you're from a country that's blacklisted by like I guess like the US government's blacklist, but I think it's a very limited number of countries. I think it's only like North Korea, like Iran, and a few other places. But we can definitely try to share more on that. But yeah. Evgeny, yeah. So Evgeny replied, I think TLDR better spend bucks on one big rig instead of running multiple miners, right? We just talked about this more competitive approach. Testnet 2 software will be very different. What we have in Testnet 1. Okay. Yep, that's all good. Somebody replied to Alex about the restricted countries. They said, so much thanks for you all. One question for clarification. KYC will not allow US citizens or US residents. That's a good question. Definitely, if you're a U.S. citizen, you can't participate. If you're a U.S. resident, but you're a citizen of another country, then as long as you have citizenship in that other country and you can prove that through KYC, then you should be fine. And then somebody said, okay, so back to setup ceremony. What about outer setup ceremony? I'm stuck on the very last step, got keys, but didn't have an opportunity to tweet or paste my ETH address. Did I lose the opportunity?
Yeah, I just friend requested you, so just all right, cool. You responded, yeah. So yeah, I got this one.
Okay. Can you wait? You can hear me now, Alex, right?
Yeah, I had to
Okay.
reset. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So yeah, Alex can help with that. Yeah. Also, if anybody else is having that same issue, like you can DM me or Alex, or actually DM me. Probably, I want to take more off of Alex's plate. I think he has a lot going on. But yeah, either of us are fine to help with that. Okay. Can you start in first week of December? Is it based on number of CPUs? So whenever the incentivized testnet launches, you can join at any point. That's up to you when you want to join. So if you want to join the first week of December, assuming that we're launched before that, yeah, feel free. And then you said, is it based on number of CPUs? Maybe I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. Maybe you can try to clarify more. But if you're suggesting like is participation based on number of CPUs? No, anybody can connect and participate. You just have to go to our SnarkOS GitHub repo, connect and start running a node. Again, if you want to be competitive, then obviously like your setup, will matter if you have more, resources than another person. But there is no like minimum technically, right, to participate. It's just if you have really low resources, you won't be as competitive. Okay, I think okay, somebody else is typing a question, so hopefully that'll come in soon. But yeah, the KYC stuff, maybe just thinking on that. There'll probably be some more details about that we'll release. There's a few other things we're working through, so just stay tuned on that. But again, I think the main takeaway is US and Canada, unfortunately. Well, okay, so here's the thing. If you want to participate and you're from US and Canada, you can. It's just that if you want to redeem the testnet tokens when mainnet launches, you won't be able to. That's the only thing. So if you want to participate, like you can, but that's just the reason why if you're in the US and Canada, you won't be able to get anything. Okay, will it be a problem if I change the server on my miner? I don't think so, but I will.
As long as you,
yeah,
I think as long as you keep the same address, it's fine. But I'm not sure to what extent we're going to be using things like IP for the tracking side of things. Yeah.
Short answer is no problem as long as you keep the same address. Maybe if there's, I don't know, if we get, maybe there's an edge case where we got to start worrying about IPs, but I think short answer is you shouldn't need to worry about it as long as you keep the same miner address.
Then somebody said, can we have step-by-step details to KYC, setup testnets, and more? So I've discussed this with Errol, who is our developer relations guy. I think a lot of you have heard from him before. Basically, my plan. So here's the thing. For people that don't know, I actually don't have a traditional engineering background. I don't really code that often. I mean, I've been learning how to do that since I've been in Aleo, and it's been amazing. So I'm going to be somebody participating in the testnet that, technically doesn't have like a swath of experience. So once I understand how everything works, I'm planning on putting together like a walkthrough video, just showing people like, okay, here's what it looks like to run, a mining node on the network. Here's what it looks like if you're using like cloud computing resources, etc. So there will definitely be a video out for that. And for KYC, once we get more details on that, I think that makes a lot of sense to maybe, go through like specific details about what that would look like. So those are definitely things we want to have. Okay, so Kev says some basic questions. When does the testnet 2 launch? When mainnet? Maybe you weren't here at the beginning of the call, but basically what we said is that, so right now the you can connect, you can participate in testnet 2. However, for the next 2 weeks, it's going to be a calibration period and there are no incentives, so you won't get anything from it. However, it will be beneficial to us so that we can figure out where there are issues and how we can better resolve them. The official date, we still have to announce. It'll be within the next few weeks, though. I think we're confident on saying that much. When mainnet, what we've communicated before is Q1 of next year. When in Q1, I'll tell you, with like 90% certainty, definitely not at the beginning of Q1. So it's not like, don't expect on January 1st for us to have something, probably toward the tail end of Q1 2022. However, that still needs to be decided. Okay, what is the current estimated start time for testnet 2? I think I just answered that, hopefully. Also, the general assumption is 32 cores will have 4 times better the blocks as 8 cores. Is that a good assumption to make? Maybe. I think it's all dependent on the setups that other people have.
All things being equal, it should. All things being equal, yes. Obviously the difference between theory and practice I can't account for, but yes, in theory.
Yeah. Cool. Then I think we should have an FAQ pin somewhere in Discord because some questions are repetitive. Yes, 100,000%. We're absolutely going to have that available. Like once the incentivized testnet starts, I've been compiling a list over the past few months based on like general questions that people have asked. So that's already been in the works and will be included. Okay. Also, does a 32 core CPU need 4 times the RAM for an 8 core? I would say
you need more RAM. No, you shouldn't need more RAM. I mean, you can the amount of RAM your instance or your machine has can be independent. Some more or less independent from the number of cores you have. So, yeah, I think you don't need to worry about scaling up the memory. You shouldn't. I mean, I'm thinking about that. Let me actually.
And then Evgeny's.
Look at my note. Actually, I have a note. Right?
Yeah. Cool. And then while you're doing that, Evgeny said RAM is mostly used for networking? Question mark.
Yeah, because when we pumped up peers on the testnet 1, it was mostly affected on the RAM usage.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking at my node right now. Can you guys hear me? Sorry,
Yes, we can.
Cool. I'm looking at my node right now, and I have a 16 core machine, and memory it's using 11.3 gigs, and it's been pretty stable since I started. So, I guess in short, I don't think you need to worry about memory beyond what the minimum requirements are that Anthony laid out.
Okay, so somebody said, could you please give some more lead time and start in the first week of December instead of next week, as we are running and understanding the parameters. So again, we haven't announced an official date. At least, so this week and next week will be the calibration period. So at the earliest, some point in the week of, let me just pull up my calendar here. So at the earliest, at some point on the week of starting on Sunday, the 28th, that week would be, at some point in there would be the earliest. So we're pretty much like entering the first week of December. December 1st is the Wednesday of that week. However, I do also know that in the US, Thanksgiving is on the 25th, so the week before that, and then Hanukkah for our Jewish friends is Monday the 29th. We may also take that into consideration. But trust me, we're going to give people like plenty of time to, get set up. When we put out that blog post, at a minimum, you'll have a week leeway to make sure you understand everything. Okay, in relation to ambassadors program, who is eligible to participate for criteria of selecting? So for the ambassadors program, anybody who's in our community, in theory, can be an ambassador. So just by you being in our Discord and participating, you can be an ambassador. Now, there's going to be different levels. So if you're somebody that actually wants to take more of an active role, like reap a lot of the benefits of being an ambassador and sort of have specific recognition, you'll have to produce content. And when you produce content, that will be reviewed by a group of people. And if we say like, yeah, this is great, you know, it wasn't half-assed, like they really put in a lot of work, it's helping to benefit our community, you'll get recognition for that in the form of like points, and those points will correlate to you, you know, moving up the ranks and being, more, how do we say it? I guess celebrated, you know, ambassador. So again, there's different levels, and the people that are like the core to helping run this program are going to be like, you know, it's going to be a smaller group of people that are putting in the work. If you want to be a part of that small group, we're happy to bring you in. You'll just have to contribute, and it's fine however you want to contribute, right? We're not going to say like, oh, you have to do this specific thing or that. It's whatever we, you know, if you're doing something to help grow the community, then that's good enough for us. But again, there will be more specific details about that. Okay, we're over time, but I'll keep going through these questions, and then I think I might have to also hop. Let me just check my calendar. Okay, yeah, I have to hop, but I'll see if I can answer these last questions. Okay, now I just lost my tab. All right, Abu, do you ever decide on community name, or is it Aleo ambassadors? Yeah, so I keep off. We had a bunch of people fill out that form, and I think we still need to have a vote on that. So you know what? This is what I'm going to do. So when we get ready to launch the incentivized testnet, um, leading up to it, we'll have that vote and let people decide. And then on the incentivized testnet date, we will officially announce the name of the community. I think that'll be a good way to do it. And by the way, people may have noticed I've moved our community call a bunch of times. Basically, right now I've moved it to the 23rd. Maybe I'll move it back to another day. I'm not really sure, but essentially I want to use one of those calls and line it up on the day that we announce the incentivized testnet, so that we'll be able to read that blog post. They can get all their information. Then we'll have like an official, like basically official launch call where you guys can join. Hopefully, new people that find out about this through Twitter and some of the advertising we do. Everybody can join, and we can just have like an open session. So it'll be kind of like a fun thing, right? Like people will be connecting, starting to mine. You know, we can maybe have like a live stream or something, and then people can ask questions and just celebrate. So yeah, that's during that meeting, we'll also hype it up and announce the name of the community. So yeah, we'll be sure to do that. El Turco, also El Turco, I believe I just checked, and I don't think you're muted anymore. Hopefully that was fixed. I tried, because I feel bad that you weren't able to speak before. But yeah, so I just wanted to thank Errol. Last weekend, he met with our group members in Istanbul and made our people happy. Thanks. Oh, sweet. Yeah, he sent a picture of that. I guess you guys went out to a bar or something. That was really cool. We plan on doing more of that. You know, I really want to try to get out to Russia at some point, because I know we have a lot of community members there as well, and yeah, maybe some other countries where we have folks. But yeah, that's amazing that he was able to do that, and we definitely want to do that more. You know, I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of people in Lisbon, Portugal, who are from a few other countries where we have community members. So yeah, that's amazing. Cool. Okay, I see somebody else is typing something. All right, I'll give it 3 more minutes. So we'll end it. Okay, it's 2 more minutes. Then I'll end it here. So we'll see if this question comes through. But yeah, super excited to be getting this stuff going. Okay, I guess they stopped typing their question. All right. Well, since we're over by 8 minutes,
Quick question.
I'm gonna end. Go ahead.
Are there any changes to the calendar this week? Maybe canceled Snarkorea's call or Leo call?
Oh, this week, so far nothing has been canceled. Let me just double check. Yeah, so okay, so there was supposed to be a community call last week, and then and then I moved it to this week, but then I moved it again to next week because I wanted to align it more with, oh no, see, oh no. Yeah, it was supposed to be next week, then I moved it to this week, then I moved it 2 weeks. Where did I move it? Oh, now I moved it to the 23rd. So there is a change on that. So the next community call is the 23rd, because we were thinking maybe that's when we would put out an initial blog post, the initial blog post I mentioned, to give people a week in advance. So I think that's the only thing that moves. So right now that's on the 23rd. Maybe it'll move again if we decide not to put the blog post out on that day, just to like announce the testnet. But I'll keep people posted on that. But everything else should be set. One thing I was discussing is that for the SnarkOS and the Leo meetings, we may make them shorter because we haven't had as much participation recently, but that hasn't been finalized. But I'll let people know about that. But that should be, I think that's the only change, is that community call is kind of hopped around. But yeah, essentially, whenever the blog post goes out, actually, so I have to make a correction. I said we would have actually, no, it's not a correction. As you can tell, I'm kind of like all over the place here. Basically, we'll have the call for the official like launch party for like the incentivized testnet or whatever, and we'll do the live stream, like I said. But 1 week in advance, when we put the blog post out, we'll also have a similar AMA session to this. So people will have a chance to read the blog post, like understand everything, and then we'll do like another session, because I'm assuming after this calibration period there will be like some changes or some learnings, and we also want to be able to communicate that with people. So that's not on the calendar right now, but yeah, it will be. So yeah, maybe that's the only thing. Okay, cool. Then with that, I am going to end this call. Appreciate everybody for joining. We're super excited to get this going. I think there's a lot of hype from people, which I'm super excited about, and I think we can do a lot of cool things here. So yeah, maybe the last thing I'll say is wag me. We all going to make it. Everybody here is going to get, hopefully a nice allocation tokens from this. And yeah, we want to be able to do that for everybody since they're all early adopters. So with that, I'll see you all later. Thanks for joining, and looking forward to running a node with you all. Peace
Thank you
out.
for the call.
Yeah, thank you.